Mr. Speaker, I first of all must thank Almighty God. It is normal that I give him thanks for an opportunity like this one whereby I can give account for my stewardship and update the Parliament and by extension the country on the numerous activities that are going on in my ministry. I also always find it imperative to give thanks to the good people of East Basseterre who continue, our constituency number 1, who continue to repose their confidence in me. This morning I would, with your permission, Mr. Speaker, mainly focus on our capital projects and provide an update, as I intimated earlier. And in summary, Mr. Speaker, the total cost of all the capital projects being undertaken at present amount to approximately $256,890,000, and this can be separated into foreign and local contracts as follows. And the projects that are currently ongoing in St. Kitts are as follows. We know of the new cruise pier project, and the value of that contract is some $43,232,000 US. Phase 2 of the Island Main Road project values an issue amount of $49,499,870. And important to also note that as part of this phase 2 of the Island Main Road project, there are some 15 local subcontractors that will be engaged. To date, some 9 of the 15 local subcontractors to be engaged on the job, and that will amount to approximately $7.8 million out of a total of some $15 million. There's also going on in the town of Old Road, the Fisheries Breakwater project, which will cost some $6.8 million. And of course, importantly, in proximity of that is the major works at the Old Road Bay, which would amount to some 32 million EC dollars. What is important as well, Mr. Speaker, is that all of the materials, the base material, the rocks, and other material for the construction of these projects would come from our quarry over there in Canada Estate. And we anticipate that the quarry will yield or produce an amount of material in the amount, beg your pardon, of some 6.8 million EC dollars. The Taxi Alpha at the RLB International Airport, that too is ongoing and would cost some $16,933,758. And at the seaport, the bulkhead, which was damaged by hurricane some years ago, many years ago, is now being addressed in the amount of some $1.6 million. In relation to the percentage of work already completed and payments to date, Mr. Speaker, the Port Zante cruise pier, or the new cruise pier, or as someone would always say to me, the pier that the Douglas Labour Party could not build and the Team Unity Administration is building, that is some 85% complete, Mr. Speaker, and the value of work has been paid to date is some 37 million US dollars. And completion date is still set at the 23rd of September 2019 this year, Mr. Speaker.
Very good, very good.
Mr. Speaker, the Isle Main Road project is some 8%, the phase 2, I should say, is some 8% complete to date. And the scheduled completion date of that phase is May 2020, the 7th of May to be exact, 2020. And those who travel on the Eastern Corridor would note that at the Keon Washgut area, significant work being done there by IMB contractors at the price of some $917,550, Mr. Speaker, and that component of the project is some 70% complete. And it is significant because, Mr. Speaker, those who again travel on a regular basis via the Eastern Corridor of the Isle of Main Road would recognize or would experience, my sister, when it rains pretty hard, you cannot pass the washgut. And we said that is something of the past. We are going to divert the water under the road. So rain or sunfall or dew, you can travel without concerns about your danger. In Cabbage Tree, Mr. Speaker, the drainage is being addressed. Contractor Huggins and Sons have been awarded that contract in the amount of some $1,153,000, and that, to date, Mr. Speaker, is 50% complete. There has been some issues with the relocation of light poles to be repositioned by Skelec, but the estimated time for completion of this project is 5 weeks from today. In Lodge and Otleys, Mr. Speaker, John Boy Construction is undertaking works in that area, Mr. Speaker, constructing sidewalks, constructing the drainage, and that amount to be paid, or the value of that contract is some $410,507, and that component of the project is some 95% complete. In Molyneux and Mansion and Christchurch, drainage and sidewalk works continue by Boonies Construction, and all told, that contract values some approximately $1.3 million, Mr. Speaker. And the estimated time of completion is in the next 3 weeks, Mr. Speaker. In Tabernacle, it will be noted, in Tabernacle as well, works are ongoing, because you would recognize, Mr. Speaker, as well, the days when you build roads without pedestrian access are long gone on the Team Unity. We are providing access for people who walk the roads, so sidewalks, as well as the consideration for the flow of the water is being considered in Tabernacle and Bellevue, and those two contracts are ongoing and are expected to be completed in the next 6 weeks. Also in Saddles, Mr. Speaker, contractor G&T Construction has been awarded this contract in the amount of $677,261, and that sidewalk and drainage component of that project is 70% complete. The bulkhead at Casper values some $1.6 million, and some 55% of that work is completed. Also, at the taxiway, which values some $16,933, is now 15% complete. At the Breakwater project, the value of the work done to date by St. Kitts Marine Works, Mr. Speaker, is some $1.4 million, and it is expected to be completed by September of this year. The Old Road Bay contract, as I said, is now had some delay, I beg your pardon, due to the issues at the quarry and delay with the importation of expensive and major equipment. But, Mr. Speaker, while on capital projects, or in conclusion, as it relates to capital projects, I wish to note 3 exceptions. 1, Mr. Speaker, in respect to the progress to date regarding phase 2 of the Island Main Road project, I wish to note that the main contractor, Surrey Paving, has been delayed by the lack of suitability of base material from the quarry, and we have lost some time, some 7 weeks to be exact. We have made, prior to the start of these infrastructure projects, Mr. Speaker, a deliberate decision to source all of our material, our base material, our armor rocks, from the quarry. But we inherited a situation where the quarry had no equipment. So what we have done so far, Mr. Speaker, is to outsource that part of the mining of material to one rock and dirt, Mr. Speaker. And I can assure you as well that that is now on stream and going well, Mr. Speaker. Small contractors as well, Mr. Speaker, are currently losing, or have lost rather, some 3 weeks of construction due to the quarry material and due to some delay on the part of the survey department, or the lands and surveys, for providing those points for the contractors, and the water services department in respect of the relocation of underground or transmission lines. Because we too have taken a deliberate decision, Mr. Speaker, that we will, where possible, relocate the lines from under the road. Because it makes no sense, Mr. Speaker. You spend $69 million on an Island Main Road, and then 3 weeks after, or a month after, or 1 year after, you have to excavate, you have to dig up the road, to use colloquial language, and to find the pipes or to find utilities. So we have taken a deliberate decision to, where possible, remove those utility lines to the verges and thus avoid that occurrence, Mr. Speaker. I also want as well, Mr. Speaker, to note the exception as it relates to approximately 12 kilometers of asbestos pipes, which have now been identified and have to replace from under the Island Main Road, or have to replace, period, because in today's world, we should not have asbestos pipes transmitting water. So, Mr. Speaker, an allowance was made for only 5% of this, but now we have to estimate a further $6.2 million to address these near 8 miles of asbestos pipes that lie under the road. And while on water, Mr. Speaker, I wish to make the point as well that our rainfall patterns still remain the same. Our rainfall is thus classified as far below normal average recorded, and we have only recorded rather 10.3 inches total for the year, and this is below average, Mr. Speaker. This, you would recognize, would cause, or would have already caused, significant reductions in surface flows namely from our Wingfield, Franklin, and Stonefort sources, which on average registers, Mr. Speaker, combined flows of over 800,000 gallons a day, but has been reduced by more than 30%, leaving the gap to be filled by groundwater. Our reservoir storage, Mr. Speaker, saw drastic fluctuations throughout the year as water demand continues to increase against the rainfall deficit, which affects both surface sources and groundwater recharge systems. The greatest fluctuation, Mr. Speaker, occurred in the St. Peters and Bastia water system, which comprises Gunderfield, Stapleton, O'Gee's, White House, and Olives, Lagreed, Moon Peak, Timothy Hill, and Salpon. The storage in those areas have been affected, and distribution systems have also been affected, respectively. This district, in addition to being the business and industrial hub, is witnessing a great housing boom in St. Peters, and the system is seriously inadequate. Mr. Speaker, the St. Peters area has therefore been subject to rationing or a rationing program that goes from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. in the morning, Monday to Friday, but it's being relaxed on weekends. In other parts of Bastille, rationing is executed after system shocks or water loss events. With an aging and brittle water transport system, or water transmission system, that Mr. Speaker, residents will from time to time experience unplanned service interruptions due to trunk line breakage or other contributors such as construction activities which inadvertently damage our mainlands. On days we will witness significant story loss due to any one of the aforementioned reasons. We will also ration, because there is no other area around the island, but no other area, I should say, around the island, Mr. Speaker, is being rationed. As we look forward, though, Mr. Speaker, along with the addition of a number of wells, plans are presently being developed to replace the aging infrastructure and develop a more reliable, climate-resilient water source. And that is the only alternative we have, is reverse osmosis or desalination, and to introduce automation and a SCADA system to better monitor and control water and water assets. Mr. Speaker, the member from number 8, I know he's worried as well as the residents in St. Peters. The residents of Odge's Gut at times experience unplanned service interruptions when the demand outweighed supply. Odge's Gut storage reservoir, Mr. Speaker, is served by the Green Hill surface water source only on a seasonal, unreliable basis. And as we are now experiencing an extended dry period, the surface flows has significantly reduced by almost 70%, Mr. Speaker, and unable to sustain our operational storage in the reservoir. As the water height drops in the area, Mr. Speaker, below operational level, the residents on the highest point, closest to the Odge's tank, will obviously experience extremely low flow to no water at all. This dynamic, though, will happen less frequent, as it's experienced by some 7 to 9 households near the other 3 reservoirs, Stapleton, Gunda, and White House. Mr. Speaker, we intend to find a solution by tomorrow, the 31st, as we have already started to install a bypass line, bypassing the storage tank, redirecting flow from surface water source directly into the distribution line in the Odriscott area. The expected improvement, Mr. Speaker, should satisfy residents of Odries until we introduce water from Shadwell 2 in the system, which is being done under an arrangement with Bede. We will then be able to lift water from Stapleton Reservoir to Odries Reservoir, Mr. Speaker, effectively giving Odries a second more reliable source of water. Mr. Speaker, rationing is still carried out, nonetheless, from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. on Monday to Friday in St. Peter's. Specifically, the areas served by Stapleton, Gunda, and the White House reservoirs. The three reservoirs, as intimated earlier, served by one factory well at Taylor's Village. Presently, we switch supply from the single well back and forth numerous times throughout the day between these three reservoirs with a meager capacity of some 100,000 gallons each, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, the situation with water we are addressing, and it is imperative on my behalf, on my part, to really commend the residents in these areas for their tolerance level. And we can assure them that we are doing everything within our powers to address the matter and address it expeditiously. In the meanwhile, Mr. Speaker, in the interim, we humbly apologize. Mr. Speaker, the other exception I want to note relates to the Port Zante cruise pier, or the new cruise pier, Mr. Speaker. As I said, this is scheduled for completion on the 23rd of September 2019. However, Mr. Speaker, it's important to inform the nation that the contractor is claiming, Mr. Speaker, a further $7.8 million through unforeseeable physical conditions, and this has been fully denied by the client's Casper. The matter is referred to arbitration, Mr. Speaker, under clause 20.6 of the general conditions of the contract. And Mr. Speaker, it's important to note as well in this regard that the CCC JVD contract, Mr. Speaker, is a design and build contract. And Mr. Speaker, disputes are not uncommon in contracts, in particular large contracts or contracts with respect to large projects. Mr. Speaker, anyone who is involved in construction disputes all too often has to advise as to exactly which design risks have been transferred to a design and build contractor and which design risks remain with the employer or the client. Mr. Speaker, as I said, arbitration is part of the contract document, and as Minister with responsibility for SCASPA, I do have a responsibility to inform the country of this development. Mr. Speaker, my limited professional knowledge informs me that under the traditional procurement route, the design for a building or any project is completed by the employer's consultants. That finished design is then put out to tender, Mr. Speaker. The employer retains the design risks through the construction process and is able to turn to his professional team if anything goes wrong in respect of the design. The obvious advantage to the employer of this traditional method of procurement is that they have complete control of the design and the quality level of the building project. However, Mr. Speaker, Design and build contracts, broadly speaking, normally place the risk of design on the contractor, or the contractor normally makes provisions for such eventualities. As a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, we have a letter which was part of discussion, that led us as a cabinet to build confidence in the CCC JVD proposal and subsequently making the decision we made as a government. And with your permission, Mr. Speaker, I read this letter into the record, which is dated October 14, 2016, addressed to the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Public Infrastructure. And it reads, and I quote, "Dear Permanent Secretary, the caption, proposal for a second cruise pier at Port Zante." It says, "We referred to the proposal that we submitted to you via our contractor JV Driver on March 7, 2016, and we now write to seek an update on the status of the project." It continues in part, Mr. Speaker. "In particular, we understand that the review process remains ongoing, and as such, I would like to take this opportunity to reiterate the key elements of the CCC JV Driver government-to-government proposal." And it reads, "The commercial construction contract would be signed between the government of St. Kitts and Nevis, SCASPA, and the government of Canada, CCC, and such on a government-to-government basis." And interestingly, Mr. Speaker, it reads as well, "Contract and construction performance risk is borne by CCC. Therefore, any potential costs or time overruns are managed between CCC and JV Driver at no risk to SCASPA." Mr. Speaker, that speaks for itself, Mr. Speaker. And no doubt, the actions that have led to this claim, Mr. Speaker, I submit can obviously erode confidence in some parts. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I would like to address briefly, and quickly rather, the issue of renewable energy. And our distinguished Prime Minister and member from number 7 spoke to our trip to Morocco and the technical cooperation agreement which I had the privilege to sign. And in respect of renewable energy, Mr. Speaker, I would be the first to admit that we have lagged in this development. Mr. Speaker, but in the interim, I want to inform this Parliament and the country that we have now entered into, we have now signed, we meaning Skellig, has now signed a power purchase agreement, I should say, which was approved by Cabinet a few weeks ago, and seeing the commencement of a solar project. And this solar project, Mr. Speaker, is not only important to the future development of our country, but is the potential lifesaver of the financial security of Skellig. It will avoid fuel costs, Mr. Speaker, and the expected fuel avoidance costs from the installation of this solar farm will not only be beneficial to the energy demand of this federation, but is potentially the only viable option, Mr. Speaker, at this time to keep Skellig afloat moving forward. There are other initiatives as well, Mr. Speaker, on the horizon, which may help to ease the decline, such as the prepaid metering initiative, or as it's called, pay as you go. This would allow Skellig, Mr. Speaker, to recoup monies upfront for electricity consumption, which can have a positive effect on its cash flow. Mr. Speaker, at present, Skellig obtains its fuel through PDV St. Kitts. But for over 1 year now, Mr. Speaker, as a result of the restrictions placed on Venezuela. PDV has not received its fuel from Venezuela at the expected concessionary prices. Mr. Speaker, this is a multifaceted problem with only one immediate solution which we have found, which is to build the solar farm at least cost in proximity to the generation plant or power station at Nismus. Mr. Speaker, the future of our energy security is hinged on this decision, as well as the financial stability of Skellig. This project, Mr. Speaker, is an example of the bold thinking and actions being undertaken by the directors and the management of Skellig. Bold thinking and bold actions to ensure a reliable infrastructure, also a cleaner and sustainable environment for our citizens, residents, and visitors. Mr. Speaker, this project will cost Skellig, also the citizens and residents of St. Kitts and Nevis, $0, not 1 cent, Mr. Speaker. And it will be fully paid for over 20 years by the savings created by the switch to clean and reliable energy, Mr. Speaker. The partner in this business, Mr. Speaker, is Leclanche SA, which is headquartered in Switzerland. Leclanche is a leading provider of high-quality energy storage solutions designed to accelerate our progress towards a clean energy future. Its history and heritage is rooted, Mr. Speaker, in over 100 years of battery and energy storage innovation, and the company is a trusted provider of energy storage solutions, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, with that said, I want to thank you for your listening and thank you for your indulgence. May it please you, Mr. Speaker.